Kick-ass facts, women who passed as men and made history. Pew, 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 pew! Hatshepsut, circa 1479 to 1458 BCE, for nearly 20 years she ruled Egypt as one of the few female pharaohs in the history of ancient Egypt. Her rule began when her husband died and her stepson, was too young to become pharaoh. She did make attempts to legitimize herself in the role. In addition to leading military expeditions and expanding trade, it is also believed she dressed in the attire typically worn by male kings. Depictions of her range from a physically female form to images of her as physically male with chest hair, build, and a beard. Marina the monk. Please note, I will be using she, her pronouns in this one because that's what I found online. We don't know if that's what his preference, we don't know, their preference would have been. Marina the monk probably lived in the 5th century, and the first biographical account was probably written between 525 and 650 CE. Not a lot of amazing record keeping. Her mother died when Marina was very young, so she was raised as a devout Christian by her father. As Marina approached marriageable age, her father intended to find his child a husband and then retire to a monastery. When Marina learned of this plan, she asked why he intended to save his own soul and destroy hers. When asked by her father, "What shall I do with you? You are a woman," Marina said she would come live as a monk with him. She shaved her head, changed into men's clothes. Her father gave all his possessions to the poor, and they traveled together to live a monastic community life where they shared a room. I mean, it said cell, but room sounds less depressing. She took the name Marinos and traveled with her father for several years at the monastery. Her secret became in jeopardy when an innkeeper's daughter falsely claimed that Marina had impregnated her. But instead of revealing the truth, Marina raised the child herself after being kicked out of the monastery. Her identity remained a secret until after her death. During the funeral prayers, one of the monks, who was blind in one eye, is said to have received full sight after touching the body. Marina has been called the patron saint of transgender people and transgender parenting by LGBT Christians. Irish-born Christian Kit Kavanagh, 1667 to 1739, disguised herself as a man and joined the British Army as a dragoon in 1693 with the intention of finding her husband, who had been drafted the year before. Over the next decade, she served under the Duke of Marlborough fighting the French. She eventually found her husband and convinced him to keep her secret so she could continue to serve. She went on to distinguish herself on the battlefield through multiple campaigns during the War of the Spanish Succession, 1702-3. She was wounded several times throughout her military career, and it was after she suffered a battle injury in 1706 that required surgery that her identity was discovered. Though she was discharged, she remained with the dragoons, serving as the officer's cook. After her husband was killed in battle, she remarried 2 more times, retired from the army in 1712, and opened an inn. Kavanagh was granted a lifetime pension by Queen Anne and was given a military burial. This next one's a bit of a twofer. Irish-born Anne Bonny, 1697 to 1782, grew up in Charleston, South Carolina. In 1718, she married a poor sailor named James Bonny and left for the Bahamas. Once there, Anne spent her time in saloons seducing pirates. That's not very nice. She eventually left her husband for Captain John Calico Jack Rackham and launched her pirating career by joining his crew. On board, Anne lived as a woman most of the time, but during engagements with other ships, she dressed as a man. English-born Mary Read, 1685 to 1721, had been dressed as a boy as a child by her mother, who rented her out as a servant to make ends meet. At age 13, she served on a British warship, carrying bags of gunpowder to the crew. She later joined the Army of Flanders and eventually fell in love with her bunkmate, to whom she divulged her secret, and her entire regiment shortly after. Mary quit the army and married the soldier. Sadly, he died a short time later. She resumed her life as a man and sailed for the West Indies on a Dutch ship. The ship was captured by English pirates led by, that's right, Calico Jack. Full circle. The crew, believing Mary to be a fellow Englishman, encouraged her to join them. There are various theories as to how Anne discovered Mary's secret. What is known is the two became friends and confidants. They fought side by side during battles and even led their crews into violent raids. In 1720, their ship was overpowered by one of the governor's vessels and Calico Jack surrendered. The two women stood trial in a Jamaican courtroom. Both of them pled not guilty to all charges. Though they were found guilty, their executions were stayed. Read died of fever in jail, and it is unknown what became of Bonny.